The following podcast is brought to you by the Johners Podcasting Network, found exclusively at WrestlingWithJohners.com. Hello and welcome to the latest live episode of Wrestling with Johners, episode 372. And I've got a fantastic guest for a Tuesday evening, just 48 hours removed from winning their latest championship, becoming the United Wrestling Champion. None other than the Crimson Killshot Artemis returns back onto the show. Artemis, thank you for rejoining us, and how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me back on. I'm excited to get going.
Absolutely. Well, the last time we saw you on here anyway was as one half of the Odyssey. Now, you're still very much one half of the Odyssey, but to a lesser extent, and we will touch on that. Of course, Chris Aries was my first guest from my hiatus, my summer hiatus. He rejoined us at the end of September, closely followed by L.A. Taylor. We know a thing or two about L.A. Taylor, don't we, Artemis? And the following week, Blue Pain and Memes joined me 2 for 1 on that episode, 367. And then the Wonderland Warrior, everyone's favorite babyface, or sometimes heel, Aluna joined us. And then Tommy Kyle was the guest on episode 369. Nathan Angel joined us for episode 370. And last week we had Act 2. But today, it's this lady here, the brand new United Wrestling Champion, the Crimson Killshot Artemis. Now, we are kind of only 48 hours, 2 days removed from you winning that championship from the Tap Social movement in Oxford. I know for me, it was an incredible show. I know everybody's been praising the show, from the other wrestlers that are on it, the fans, people on social media. I absolutely loved it, and it seems that United Wrestling, every show they put on just seems to get better and better and better. But it was even more sweet on Sunday because you became their champion after a bit of a journey, I have to say. But tell us about your emotions and your feelings 2 days removed. How are you feeling?
I don't think it's quite sunk in yet either. I think, I saw the photos from the show started coming out earlier today, and I got access to those, and it was a bit sort of surreal, sort of seeing it, and you're like, oh my god, did that actually happen? Obviously it was a long road, like you said, to get there, and it was just quite an overwhelming moment. So yeah, it's still sort of sinking in.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we are live, of course, as we are with every episode of Wrestling with Johners. We're live across my Facebook page and YouTube channels. So first of all, thank you very much for watching, and don't forget to hit that like, follow, subscribe button, and don't forget to like this episode with Artemis, of course. But if you are watching and you want to interact with the show, you want to get in touch, you want to send Artemis some questions or throw any comments our way, then you can do. Just simply ping them through to us using your chosen device, and we'll do our very best, as long as they're appropriate, of course, to bring them up on screen. And we've had a whole load of fan questions come through before we went live, so this should be a really fun episode of Wrestling with Johners, and a few that have dropped through already. I've seen them, but I will bring them up, of course. We spoke about the journey and the story, and you've got a long history with United Wrestling. And I think up until the Dog's Bollocks' reign ended this past weekend, before they kind of took the championships from you about a year ago, you were the longest reigning United Tag Team Champions alongside Chris Aries, the Odyssey. But you are not a one-time, you're a two-time United Champion, of course, and you won the United Championship back in May, I think. Was it End of Days when you defeated Simon Quest?
I think it was June.
Was it June?
I get really muddled. I can't really remember what day of the week
I do. But I think this was possibly the encounter you had with Simon Quest.
That's it.
Social. And very briefly, for a matter of minutes, you were the United champion. Up until that pesky LA Taylor, she won the Future Proof Championship earlier on in the night, which entitles her to cash in on the on any championship, more predominantly the United Championship, whenever she chooses. And she cashed in that evening after you had a hard-fought win over Simon Quest. And she cruelly stole the championship from you, or won the championship from you. But from there, the last 6 or 7 months has been you kind of jumping through hoops, jumping over hurdles, and trying to get your hands on LA Taylor. But Max Jaggard always seemed to be there to interfere and get in your way. But you did eventually get that one-on-one match. It wasn't quite the one-on-one match that we were expecting. It was against Max Jaggard, but LA Taylor was there. He was defending on behalf of LA Taylor, of course. But I mean, following that match with Simon Quest and Jess getting beaten by the Future Proof champion at the time, LA Taylor, this was you were. This was the look on your face. I think that the picture, the face there, says it all, doesn't it? Really, we're clearly pissed off at what had happened. The title had been cruelly stolen from you. But tell us a bit about kind of the journey you went on from there, because you could not only see that you were angry, but probably a very, very focused Artemis on wanting to regain your championship and get back to the top again. And that chase began, and that chase for LA Taylor began that evening. But tell us a bit about the journey you went on to get back to the top of the mountain, so to speak.
Yeah, in many ways, I sort of never had my eyes set on that title. I love being at United, and I'm sort of always along for the ride a little bit. And the opportunity with Simon Quest came up unexpectedly because, unfortunately, Alexis was injured. Alexis Falcon was meant to be in that match. And I got given the opportunity because at the time I was ranked number 1, undefeated at United, and was considered to be the number 1 contender. Obviously, that match ended in the way it did. Simon, we went toe-to-toe, and it was a war, and it did take it out of me. And I think for me, that evening, the reason that I was so angry was, LA has every right to cash in her title shot, but it was the way it was done, getting Max to hit me with a belt before going for a shot never felt just to me. Like, that wasn't an even matchup at any point. She was already recovered. Her match had been quite a bit earlier on in the show. She had rest. I was freshly out of a match and then got hit with a belt. So at that point, my eyes were just set then on her, and just taking it back from her. It clearly meant that much to her. And in many ways, it was just a case of getting that back in my hands, and I felt like I had a right to it at that point.
Yeah.
Obviously, I wasn't the only person with a contendership. So obviously, we saw Nina Samuels come back in. She'd previously pinned Simon Quest, so she had a fair claim to it as well. So even then, my path wasn't clear. And that match ended, with LA taking a pin after I'd finished on Max. It was all just quite a frustrating time, to be honest. And yeah, Max just couldn't stay out of things. So it's always just felt like never an even matchup. It's always 2v1, 2v1, 2v1. And even on Sunday, LA's too injured to wrestle, but then she's still there at ringside trying to interfere. And for people that weren't there, what actually happened was initially the match did end in a disqualification, because for her there was no incentive not to interfere and get disqualified because she could keep the title.
Yeah.
But the GM Mike actually intervened and said, no, we're not doing it that way. If you're not able to defend it, any disqualification, you drop the belt. It's as simple as that. So we restarted, and it felt a little bit more on even footing. Obviously, there were some other unexpected incidents that then did happen throughout the match.
Yeah.
I kind of sort of attributed it a bit to like Hercules going through the trials. It sort of felt a bit like that. It's going through each one, you sort of thinking, oh, I'm getting closer, and something else comes up, and it's getting that win at the end was just, it was, like I said, overwhelming, and it's felt long fought and long earned.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's bring up some pictures, and of course, it is quite, apropos that you actually ended up facing Max Juggard, as you rightly said, because of the amount of times he interfered in pretty much every match that you were in, from when you first won and then lost the championship, and then the journey you had. Here's just some pictures. A shout out to the photographer, it's Luke Lasurf, isn't it?
Yeah,
terrific photographer who does all of United's shows. But your gear, we'll talk about your gear, but I think the lighting was ready-made to show off your gear to its fullest. LA Taylor, injured on the outside, but as you quite rightly said, she did play a part in the match. But here's just a few stills, a few shots from the match itself. And I've got to say, Max, I think you're called a weasel once or twice from the crowd, but he looked fantastic, but he was no match for you in the end. And that's shortly after getting the 3 count, your hand raised by Scarbs, and the championship around your waist, and the rest of the pillars there to join you. A fantastic match, a gripping match. And I think one thing that really, really stands out, especially about when you won the championship the first time round in June, and then again 2 days ago from the Tap Social this past Sunday, was the crowd, the fans, how loud they were, how responsive they were, how supportive and how loving they were throughout the journey, throughout the story, throughout the run, and your kind of, your run, your chase back to the title, back to the top. And they blew the roof off when you first won the title over Simon Quest 6 months ago, and they blew the roof off again this past Sunday. But I think, as much as, you won the championship, you are the champion, I think the fans have a massive, massive role to play in your success and your journey, because they were with you every single step of the way, weren't they?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think when I got the win against Simon, actually, I was sort of taken aback by the fan reaction, because obviously Simon was so popular with the fans as well. He had a whole section, we called them the Questicles, and they were always really, really loud and in support of him. And when I won, I sort of wasn't sure, what's the reaction going to be or anything, but it was nothing like I could have ever anticipated. It was huge. And ever since then, I just feel like they obviously saw what happened. I think they felt the injustice, and they've just been gunning for me. They really wanted me to get that title out of LA's hands. And again, like that first photo you showed from the weekend, I came out before the match, and I just sort of stood there and took it in, because it just filled me with so much motivation for what I needed to do. And that was quite a special moment, to be honest. I was like, whatever happens, like, I've got all of these guys on side. LA and Jagger keep trying to outnumber me, but I've got the whole of the Tap behind me. So it does drive you. It does, you want to do it for them as well.
Yeah, but it must be comforting and heartwarming to know that you are a popular champion, that they blew the roof off every single time you go out there, and especially when you won the championship on Sunday. We've got a few people watching at home. Let's bring up some watchers, some listener questions. The Wrestling Outsiders, she's our champion, absolutely. And I think that even when LA was the champion, that's what the fans were chanting, is that Artemis is our champion. And again, from the Wrestling Outsiders, so happy and proud to have been there for the big win on Sunday at United. Again, you're becoming quite the belt collector. Those titles, whose titles do you have your eyes on next? But maybe that's a question we'll answer a little bit later on, because, you're involved in many groups. But to be honest with you, most of the groups you work for, you hold a championship already. So they're gunning for you. I don't know whether there's many people that you're gunning for, but maybe that's a question we'll bring up a little bit later on for sure. let me ask you. When I had Chris Aries on the show back in September, I asked him the question. He was obviously still the future-proof champion then, and you were on your quest. You're on your journey to your match with LA Taylor, or so we thought. It ended up being Max Jaggard to win the United Championship again. And I just played devil's advocate, a very, very cheeky question, and I asked him in my interview with him in September, if you were to become a two-time champion, if you were to hold the United Championship once again, would he be tempted to cash in the future-proof title? Well, we kind of got a little bit of a sneak preview of that on Sunday, didn't we? Because I think, although there was hugs there, he did hold up his future-proof championship. And there's a look in your eye as if to say, can I trust him? What's going on here? But then, he gave you a big hug to say, it's all right, we're all friends here. Don't worry, I wouldn't do that to you. But, let's just jump back to the listener questions. And we've actually got United Wrestling watching now. Now that you hold the crown of United, is there any concern that Aries might like a shot? And of course, he gets to call his shots, I suppose. He can cash in whenever he chooses. I even posed this question to you in our backstage interview after your match. Chris Aries, he kind of teased a possible cash in on Sunday. A lot of people are asking the same question I'm asking. Do you think he will?
I reckon he could. He's a bit like my annoying little brother. Do you know where you sort of love each other and hate each other all at the same time? We bicker, and then nobody's bullying each other. We've got each other's backs. So I think obviously with everything that was going on with LA, he was sticking to himself. He was staying away from it because he has enough respect for me to know that was my journey to take. And I think had he tried to cash in at that point, that would really muddied the waters and made things more complicated than they already were. And I am super grateful to him for that. So I think it would be unreasonable of me to expect him not to cash that in at some point. I mean, it's up to him really what he wants to do. If he wants to cash it in, I'm here for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me ask you, I mean, that is the only championship that he's not held in United. He's been the Phantomweight champion, the future-proof champion, the tag team champion. I don't think he's had a shot at Hustle's belt yet, but that is a new championship. But of course, I think his eye is firmly on the United Championship. Whether it be you or somebody else down the line, that's the bout that he wants, I'm sure. But United Wrestling asking a very interesting question there. And it's a question that all United Wrestling fans are asking. And let me play devil's advocate again. I mean, I don't know whether the two of you have worked, whether the two of you have faced each other one-on-one. You're very famous as the tag team, the Odyssey. But have you ever kind of gone nose-to-nose, toe-to-toe with Chris Aries in the past? And if it were to happen in the United ring, what might happen?
We haven't really gone one-to-one. We've had a brief bout within a Rumble. That was back in January at Sacrifice. It got to a point where we thought it was just me and him in the ring. Turned out that it wasn't. But and we had a little bit of a back and forth. And I think what's interesting is because we've spent so much time wrestling together, is we know each other's strengths, weaknesses. And I think it would be a very interesting match if we were to have a match. I think we both respect each other enough to shake hands and give it our best shot. Not going to go easy on each other as well. So it could be quite an explosive match. But hopefully it wouldn't jeopardize our friendship.
Well, that's the most important thing, isn't it? Regardless of whatever happens, if it happens, and we're not saying it's going to, but just purely, having a little bit of fun here, playing devil's advocate, not that Chris Aries would ever. In fact, Chris Aries has actually sent in a message watching us live at home. Absolutely nothing to be concerned about, mate. That's his own words. So we got to take him for for the man that he is, the angel that he is. Looking at the emoji there. Thank you, Chris, and thank you, United and Wrestling Outsiders, for watching, tuning in, and sending your questions. And keep sending in your questions. Keep sending in your comments. And something I should have mentioned at the very top of the show, we're going to have a bit of an exclusive in about 5 minutes' time, where we're going to be announcing live on this episode of Wrestling with Johners, live in my interview with the Crimson Killshot Artemis, who Artemis's first challenger is going to be for the United Wrestling Championship at their next show. And we'll discuss that very, very soon. But thank you, Chris, for sending in your questions. I've got a couple more pictures to bring up. And of course, there you are with the championship. Looking proud to have won and to be the brand new United champion, of course. And then a couple of post-match shots with me. You could tell by the look on your face how happy and how elated and how relieved you are to have finished your story, which I think is a popular phrase to use nowadays. But I think if anybody had a story to finish, it was definitely you. But let me ask you, what does it mean, considering your history with United, considering how much success you've had with United, the relationship we have with the fans? And it wasn't always a great relationship with the fans, of course, because you were heels before. But considering the relationship you've had with the fans and the Tap Social and the Double Barrel Brewery and United Wrestling as a whole bundle, what does it mean to you to be their champion?
It means a lot. In short. United is a promotion that I feel like took a chance on me quite early on. Not long after I'd started wrestling. Obviously myself and Chris were affiliated with a certain Mr. Memes. And United knew that we didn't necessarily have a long track record behind us, but were willing to give us a shot and have then propelled us forward ever since. And I think a lot of our development has come down to the experiences and opportunities that we've had at United as well. When we held the tag belts, we were their first tag team champions, which is it feels like such a long time ago as well, and it was only last year. But they were trying to bring opponents in for us that we really wanted to face. Great experience. You had Act 2 on last week. That was one of the most fun tag matches we've had. He brought Rob Drake and Lana Austin down, and Crowley and Alexis. We've had the pleasure of facing them a couple of times. So that all has enabled us to grow so much as well, like as a tag team then, but also as individual wrestlers. And likewise, with our singles matches, some of the best matches I've had I feel like have been in the United wrestling ring. And I think it is a combination of the belief from them, the fan support, behind us. Like you said, they weren't necessarily always behind us, but we turned a new leaf, and they've really, really been a big support. And it's been a real journey with United, and long may it continue.
Absolutely. Now, I know you got some silverware, some gold underneath your desk there. Show us the United Championship. I always like to get the champions to display their gold on screen. Look at that.
It's a big one. This is a heavy one.
That is a heavy one. But include Josh Folds, of course, Memes, Simon Quest, LA Taylor, and now Artemis. So congratulations. And absolutely, I know you've got some more gold down there. We'll get you to bring out each championship as we talk about it. But sticking with United, and this is their next show. Naughty or Nice, Sunday, December the 22nd, from the Double Barrel Brewery in Tilehurst in Reading. And some amazing names there from the UK and further afield. And I did kind of mention that we will have an exclusive right now about who Artemis's first challenger for the United Championship is going to be. Now, I know you don't know, so this is going to be just as much of a surprise to you as it is anybody watching at home. But the promoters at United very kindly gave me the opportunity and the honour to announce that your first challenger for your United Championship is going to be none other than Alice Inc. So you are going to be defending your championship against one of the very best female wrestlers, European wrestlers that United could possibly throw at you. December the 22nd. Now, hopefully she's not going to be spoiling your Christmas, but Alice Inc. is going to be your first opponent just 3 days before Christmas, December the 22nd. Now that you know that, I mean, that's going in big. That's kind of, you couldn't think or have wished for a bigger opponent than Alice Inc. to be, defending your championship, the first time around. I'm not, I hope it's not a short-lived reign, but that's a tough challenger. Give us your reaction.
Oh, that's really cool. I know that she was announced for the show, and United was saying about how she's in the PWI top list. So I need to do my research on her. I think she looks jacked as well, to be honest. I'm usually the jacked one. Well, that's really exciting. Also quite daunting.
Absolutely. But she will be making a United debut, so you'll have kind of a home field advantage, so to speak, and hopefully the fan support as well. I'm sure you will have the fan support, and full of momentum, having just become the champion, and looking to carry it not just through Christmas but into 2025 as United's champion, and I'm sure that you will. But let me ask you. It's been 21 months, so getting on for over a year and a half, nearly getting close to 2 years since we last had you on the show. But let me ask you about your growth as a performer, as an entertainer, as a professional wrestler, as an all-round kind of performer in the ring. And I know that when we last spoke, you were predominantly a tag team wrestler. And you were having singles matches here and there and branching out, but you were, I'd say, maybe 90% a tag team wrestler, 10% a singles wrestler when we spoke to you in March of 2022. And I know that you only debuted, 2023 when we last had you on the show. You debuted a couple of years earlier. But I think things have gone full circle in that 21 months since we last had you on the show, and you are predominantly a singles wrestler now, and kind of not so much a tag team wrestler, although you are still very much one half of the Odyssey alongside Chris Aries. But when I kind of say that to you, do you feel more like a confident, accomplished singles wrestler more than you did before? And tell us a bit about your growth and where you feel you've grown the most as a all-round performer.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, when we spoke before, I was doing singles, but a lot of my work was in tag wrestling, and I still absolutely love tag wrestling. But obviously where me and Chris, we held some tag belts, which we've since lost. And it sort of sent us on some slightly separate paths in some certain areas. So we do still tag. This year we've tagged a couple of times, but a lot less so. Yeah. And that's, we're certainly still a tag team, but it's just we've been in demand in singles, which has been quite nice. I absolutely, like I said, I love tagging. But I think as an individual, I've grown a lot because of doing a lot more singles wrestling. I think when you're in a tag, it's kind of good because you've always got your best mate there, right? And you're always there to sort of have each other's backs, and if you're having a bit of a rough one, you can sort of help each other out a little bit. Whereas when you're going it alone, you've got to find it in yourself, and you've got to find your own confidence. And to some extent, it's just having a bit of self-belief. I think I'll speak probably for many people when I say about having imposter syndrome. That's a big thing that I've always suffered with, pretty much in every aspect of my life. So it was definitely something, I think, when we were tagging, I felt quite comfortable tagging, and then I'd go and do single stuff and be like, I'd sort of almost lose some of my self-confidence. So getting the opportunity to do more singles wrestling away from Chris, I think it sort of takes that safety blanket away a little bit. And I think, you know, that has enabled me to grow quite a lot. And then it's great because when we do come back and tag again, we're just like, what can we do? What can we do different now? What do we both do that's a bit different now? And what can we mix up? And our tag wrestling has grown as a result of us growing as single wrestlers as well. But yeah, I kind of miss tagging, you know, like I really enjoy tagging. Yeah, any promotions need a tag team. We're still a tag team.
Absolutely, Bobby. But would you agree with me that, you know, doing more and more single stuff, certainly into 2023, and then certainly predominantly the most of the 2024 has been more singles work from yourself, that's giving you more and more confidence. I think that's certainly what I've seen, and what the fans have seen is that you've grown in confidence, and you know, you don't need Chris so much as a comfort blanket or a safety net as much as you did before, and that's allowed you. And not only that, you've wrestled some really big names over the last year and a half. And that must have helped to kind of bring you along confidence-wise and your ability in the ring as well, Artemis.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a bit of a weird one because I sort of didn't notice the transition from one to the other. Like it sort of just happened. It's just the way it goes. And I remember sort of people saying to me, like, this time last year I was injured, so it was like I was out of action. Obviously, we had to drop the tag belts at United. We were meant to wrestle. I had to drop out of that match, so I unfortunately left Chris on his own. I can't remember, was it Josh Folds that stepped in?
I think Josh Folds stepped in. Yeah.
God,
so let's blame Josh.
So Josh stepped in, but obviously, unfortunately for us, we lost that match. I do still use the term "we" because I couldn't be there to defend it. And then people sort of saying to me, like earlier this year, "Oh, this year's going to be your year. It's going to be a year of Artemis and blah blah." And I'm just like, what are they talking about? Like, I don't know. And I do feel like this year it has just sort of like exploded. I've had a lot of unexpected opportunities. Yeah, like right now I'm sitting with 4 belts, which is just, again, it's like absolute bizarre to me. And again, it's like that imposter syndrome seeking in of like, how has this happened? I've got 4 belts. What's going on? So yeah, it is different, but I've definitely grown. And yeah, I've been able to face some incredible opponents. Like for me, the big one this year for me was Nina Samuels. She was actually the wrestler that I saw. So I went to my first ever wrestling show, and I think it was 2017, and she was on that. And it was the first wrestler that I saw where I was like, oh my God, this is like, it clicked for me what wrestling was about. And I bought her a t-shirt. She was the first wrestler that I ever bought any merch of. So having the opportunity to face her this year, obviously I had the singles match. I've faced her in some, you know, triple threat and 4-way and stuff as well. But that was really quite special for me.
Is that the match at Riot Cabaret?
It was, yeah, that was my debut at Riot Cabaret. So yeah, that was particularly special. I mean, that was incredible as well. That crowd is another one that is completely unreal. That room, the energy in it is like nothing else. Like I can't even sort of explain it. You come out and it just fills you like with fire. So that was an incredible opportunity.
Well, let me ask you about Nina then, because I mean, getting the opportunity, and I know you've worked her in some triple threat matches, but getting that opportunity, and it would have been your debut for Riot Cabaret in the Clapham Grand with the fantastic crowd there, as you just mentioned, and I think it was for Nina's Women's Championship as well. Is that right?
Yeah, it was.
So it's kind of so many things happening all at once. What a debut! I bet when you got the message or the email from the promoter, you must have thought it was you know, some kind of rib. But it's like, really, Nina Samuels, Riot Cabaret, the championship's on the line. It's my debut.
It wasn't
unbelievable
a match, Jonas. It happened on the night. I was actually part of the ring crew at Riot.
No way.
I still support, and basically the promoters had sort of said thank you, that I'd sort of spotted something earlier in the day and it had been resolved. And they called it out, and Nina wasn't very happy that I was getting acclaimed, and she came out and started trying to pick on me with Cassius. And the promoters were like, you know what? Let's have a wrestle. So I got to wrestle her later that day.
No wonder I couldn't find a match graphic. Yeah, but
Yeah.
no, that all makes perfect sense now. It all makes perfect sense. But I mean, sticking with Nina, when you get the opportunity to step in the ring with somebody like that, with all of her experience and knowledge, and a terrific physique, but you know what she knows mentally about professional wrestling and what she's capable of doing. I'm not saying she's underrated by any stretch of the imagination. I think the amount of championships she's held over the last year or 2 years would kind of say that she's definitely not underrated. But I don't think people really appreciate how good she is in the ring. She's the consummate professional in all aspects. What was it like to be in there with her? Was it a little bit daunting, or was it exciting for you? And you must have taken loads away from that match as well.
I think all of the above. Like,
Yeah.
the way that she processes things, you know, everything that she does within the ring is so well executed. Like, it there's not a lot you can say, you know, in some ways. But yeah, it was, like I said, obviously it was daunting because it was an important match to me, and on a different level, as well as getting to, you know, face someone with that level of experience. And I actually would say that she is in some ways underrated in the UK. Like, I know that she's had a lot of championships this year, so I think for her it was almost going out to prove a point as well, because sometimes there's these conversations about the best wrestlers in the UK and her name's not mentioned, and I'm like, she's not just one of the best women's wrestlers in the UK, she's one of the best wrestlers in the UK. You know, people love to hate her, of course. But she's a fantastic heel. And yeah, I took a lot away from that match, and I'm super grateful to her as well.
Absolutely. And you're back there again soon, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm
For
going to be
the
back there next
December the
week.
17th. So that is, 7 days today. So, well, what do you know about your involvement? I mean, the match graphic is only showing yourself, and I think that's Zoya and Martina. But what do you know about that match? What do you know about your involvement? And I'm sure you're going to be thrilled to be performing again for Riot Cabaret.
Yeah, I've been very excited to be asked to be part of it. So the Rumble is the winner gets their Christmas wish. So that's quite exciting prospect. I don't know who else is in it. I'm finding out along with everyone else as they get announced. So it's quite exciting, but also scary because I have no idea who else I'm going to be facing in that ring. But yeah, like, just being at Riot is, honestly, it's one of the most fun shows. I think, you know, they've been around. Have they only been around like post-COVID?
Yeah, I'd say maybe 2 years.
Yeah. And I think like what they've got there as a wrestling product is it's quite unique in terms of like the variety they offer on every single card that they put on. So you've got people who are there having the hard hitting matches. You've got people there doing a bit of comedy. We had Mr. Blobby, you know, and then you've got, you know, people doing incredible athletic skills that I could not even dream about doing. So the variety of people that they have on their shows, and you know, from up and down the UK as well, you know, they've got the Welsh guys come over, and it's such an atmosphere every show, and I think it's one of those shows that gets fans coming in who aren't necessarily traditionally wrestling fans either. You of course have the wrestling fans that go to shows up and down the country, but it's really nice when shows bring new fans in to the world of wrestling, and it is a really like inclusive atmosphere as well in the room. So it's I'm just really excited to be there, to be honest.
Absolutely. I'm sure they're excited to have you. I want to talk a bit about your gear now. We will go back to some other promotions and highlights and all that, but I've got to talk about your gear because you as much as you've grown as a performer, I think you've gone on a bit of a journey yourself. I think your gear has gone on a bit of a journey and has evolved over time as well. I'm going to let's bring up the right picture here, John. So I'll bring up this picture here. This is from this past Sunday, and you debuted some new gear at United Wrestling. However, 7 days earlier was when you wore it for the first time, and that's when you won the DOA Women's Championship. So it appears to be a bit of a lucky omen for you, whether it be DOA 7 days before winning your championship at United and then picking up more gold this past Sunday. But tell us about the new gear. But first of all, I want to bring up some pictures. Now, I never like to embarrass my guests, but some older pictures, so that's probably from maybe 2 or 3 years ago. There's some older gear.
2021, so that was
really
my first ever match. There you go. That was
wow.
2 or 3 or something. It was literally in December 2021.
We're going to talk about your kind of start out very, very soon, and some more gear there. That looks a bit too heavy to wrestle in, but I think you did. And there you are in the black and the red, and then of course the more familiar outfit with. I'm going to bring up the kind of the outfit with the feathers that you wear to your entrance, and of course some great photos here, kind of showing that off. To full display, and of course back to the more recent photo from Sunday. But your gear has gone on a bit of a journey and has evolved itself over the last 3 years. Tell us kind of how we got from the early days of Artemis through to the new gear that very lucky omen for you.
Yeah, I mean the first gear was a little bit of a every wrestler starts out maybe not 100% sure where they're going or what they're doing, and there's a little bit of almost like a damage limitation at the start of being able to find something you can wrestle in comfortably, something that feels comfortable for you as well, because wrestling is quite exposing in and of itself, so anything that makes you feel more comfortable is a good thing, and also not necessarily immediately dropping lots of money on gear in case it's something that you want to change quite quickly. So the first set was quite practical in that sense. At the time as well, I was sort of going along more of like a hit woman vibe. That was a very historic iteration of Artemis, I suppose. So the black leather felt right for that until I started wrestling in the summer months, and then it really sucked.
Yeah.
And I was shorts. I think what happened was I was due to be wrestling at a show that was going to be outside on a weekend where it hit 40 degrees on a black canvas that was going to be in the sun all day. And the day before, I panicked and ran to Sports Direct to see if I could find some shorts that I could wear without looking completely stupid. So I then invested in a pair of shorts that are a bit like boxing shorts. And again, it was that sort of thing of like, I needed something quite quickly and something that worked and was comfortable and, still felt like me as well. So I had my boxing shorts look, and that was quite comfortable. But I had ordered my first set of gear quite a long time before I got it. I wanted to lean more into the Greek mythology inspiration, bit of a history and mythology nerd. So I took a lot of inspiration from actually Assassin's Creed. I was playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and when I was speaking with my gear designer, I have to call out Empress Proger. She's an absolute genius. Some of the things that I sent her were actually just from the game Assassin's Creed Odyssey, because there were things that I just thought aesthetically worked really well, and if it could translate into wrestling gear that worked in a wrestling ring. So that's where the like gladiator skirt originated. So that was that one. And then pretty soon after I got my first set of gear, I ordered my second set of gear, so we're talking another year or so for the second set of gear. I had to go on a wait list for that one. And it was a thing of wanting to keep the spirit of what Artemis, what I wrestle in, what I like and what feels good for me. So the gladiator skirt I wanted, but I didn't necessarily want it to be exactly the same. I wanted a bit of variety. The colors was a little bit of a bold choice. So Chris, when he was Adonis, had some pink gear and was regularly telling me to get pink gear. And I was like, I'm not getting pink gear. I'm not getting pink gear. I'm not getting pink gear. And then when we were doing the design, it was like I wanted predominantly silver because I thought, still going with a metallic theme, and sort of wanted it to sort of look and feel a bit like armor. And then it was like, well, what accent colors am I going to have with that? And then ended up settling on pink. And I think Chris was very happy with the pink. And then orange, to be honest, is just my favorite color. And I thought, do you know what? If we're going for it, let's just go for it. And yeah, I think United, especially the lighting just made it glow, which I didn't realize it would do. I was like, that was phenomenal. It was great. But yeah, so I've still got that sort of gladiator skirt vibe, still got the armor vibe, but it's a little bit more fun as well. I think, I'm generally more of a face now. I behave myself, and
I would say so. Yeah.
And I think my gear kind of reflects that sort of transformation as well, where I'm having a bit more fun. So yeah, it feels a lot more fun.
Absolutely. And I want to talk about UBW because UBW were where you first started, where you first broke in, where you first got trained, where you had your first match. But I believe that the same day that you won the United Championship, did you do a double shot that day? Did you perform for UBW earlier that afternoon, defending your UBW Women's Championship? Now, let me just bring up some pictures of, there is the championship. Very, very beautiful it is. And there you are with the championship, looking very happy, very, very proud to be their champion, of course. And I'm going to bring up some other pictures because you've obviously got a long history with UBW. As we know, you was one half of the Odyssey. I'm still claiming that the two of you are the longest reigning tag team champions in history. And there you are with the championships. But considering your kind of your history, your legacy with UBW, and that was the company that kind of broke you in, trained you, gave you all these wonderful opportunities, and then to finally be the UBW Women's Champion, which I think did you win the belt in about June time, so sometime in the summer.
It was at the anniversary show.
Yeah, so, what does that mean to you to be their women's champion after everything you've gone through with that company and all the wonderful opportunities? And now, you are their number one woman. You are the women's champion.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long journey, like you say, with UBW. Obviously, my debut was with Square One, which sits under the UBW brand. It's kind of more of that entry level for trainees to sort of start getting their opportunities. But I was quite quickly on the UBW shows. That photo that you showed that was from December of my gear, that was actually a UBW show. So I was quite quickly on the UBW shows, which is great. And they, like I said, they gave me opportunities really soon as well. And to be honest, it's like obviously while we had the tag team titles, there was many a show where I was the only woman on a UBW show. And then they were talking about introducing the women's title. And they did a tournament. And at the time I stayed out of it because, we were still the tag team champions. So to be honest, for me, the hope with the belt is to bring more women into UBW. I think there's a lot of promotions actually that are struggling to get women in. I'm not quite sure what that is, whether it's just a case of availability or maybe price or what it is exactly. But UBW is one that I've noticed is in a similar boat to that, and they want to build their women's division up, but maybe have also struggled to get women in. So for me, holding the belt is a really big opportunity to try and help push that even more, bring more women in. So I defended at the weekend against a girl who's still quite new. She's still coming through, and she's got really good potential. Yeah, that's Ollie. She's got great potential, and I think in a few years' time she'll be probably on here with plenty of championships herself.
Yeah.
So it's that opportunity as well of like, I put it out there when I won it. I got on the microphone and I said, I don't need a number one contender. If women want to come and they want to give me a challenge for the belt, let's just do it. And that, that applies to women who've been at UBW and anyone who fancies coming in. So for me, it's about growing that division, and it feels like a big responsibility to do it.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I love the open challenge mentality as well. And you've got the championship with you next to you underneath your desk. Let's have a look at that one.
Make sure I hold it the right way.
This is the UBW Women's Championship. Another beautiful bout. At least with your collection of titles, they're all pretty looking belts. They're all good looking belts, aren't they?
They are, yeah.
And something that we kind of touched on before we went live, but now, unless I'm mistaken, I believe that you had your debut match, your first ever match under the UBW Square One banner 3 years ago tomorrow. So tomorrow will be your 3-year anniversary from your wrestling debut under the UBW Square One banner, which, like you say, technically is still a UBW show. So that was against Tommy Kyle at the time, December the 11th, 2021. And I also did a little bit of Steiner maths in my own head. And did you realize that for those 3 years, approximately 2/3 of those 3 years, you've held a championship in UBW?
I didn't know that. I mean,
so if you add together your women's championship and your tag team championship altogether, which I think was over 600-day reign as a tag team champion, and dating back to the summer as the women's champion. So 2/3 of your run, 2/3 of your career in UBW, you've been a champion, which is quite an impressive stat.
That's a bit insane. I didn't actually realize that. And I know we had those tag belts for such a long time. It was like 609 days, I think it was, when we lost them in June to Progressive Overload, who they're little rascals, but they're a fantastic tag team. So yeah, we did win them quite early though. Again, gosh, sorry, this is like my brain. We won them like in the October, I think. So it was less than a year after I'd started wrestling. And this was when me and Chris weren't necessarily a tag team yet as well. We were tagging, we were part of the meme team, and we were wrestling sort of as part of the faction. And it was at UBW that we found, oh, this kind of works as a tag team.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That's bizarre. Didn't realize that.
Yeah. Well, like I say, it's a bit of Steiner maths there. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that it's well over 2/3 of your entire run with UBW. You've actually held a championship. Let's talk about another highlight from 2024. And how about this? Your debut for Rev Pro, and that would have been. There was a lot going on in June in the summertime for yourself, but June was a busy month for you. But a six-woman tag: Ronnie Knox, Evie Madden, and yourself versus the Cutthroat Collective, Sapphire Reed, Mercedes Blaze, and Lizzie Evo. And here's the one and only picture I can actually find, to be honest with you, of you guys making your entrance. But that's a pretty big deal, and I think I noticed on your Instagram page, you were very, very happy with that kind of opportunity. Rev Pro, arguably the biggest wrestling promotion in the UK. I'd say 1 and 2 with Progress. It kind of fluctuates from week to week, but Rev Pro, arguably the number 1 promotion in the UK and one of the leading independent promotions in the world. But getting your opportunity to wrestle for them, that must have been a massive thrill for you at the time.
Yeah, it was. It came, I remember sort of getting a message about it and just being like, what? What? And I had to run, like my other half was in, and I was like, can you just check that I'm reading this right? Because I genuinely was just like, what? Yeah, like St. Neots obviously isn't too far from where I live. And it was an absolute honor to be able to be going into that match with Evie and Ronnie as well. Obviously Ronnie might have been the first female that I faced in a singles match ever. So that was quite a special thing, and obviously Evie has been around since I came into UBW as well. So it was really nice to be going in there with friends. And honestly, it was like completely unexpected. I was not anticipating sort of even being on a Rev Pro radar for this year, let alone at any point in the near future. So it did feel like a really, really good opportunity to be part of that. And what was really nice actually was seeing some of the reactions from fans as well. Like when it got announced on Twitter, certainly it's not Twitter anymore, is it? But on Twitter,
a lot of people still refer to it as Twitter. I know I do.
Yeah.
Not that I use it too often, but
there was quite a real positive reaction as well from people when it got announced, and obviously that faction has gone on to absolutely dominate in Rev Pro. And I was there in the crowd at their 5 versus 5 match that they put on the AEW weekend in August, and that might have been the best match that I've seen all year anywhere. It was that caliber. So kind of being there, it felt like I was sort of almost part of that journey as well for them. Like I know it was perhaps a small part of their journey, but that was such a good representation of women's wrestling in the UK that even to be a small part of it felt really incredible. So yeah, it was completely unexpected and out of the blue, but it really did feel like a privilege. And I think, like I said, it just wasn't even on my radar that it would be an opportunity for me anytime soon.
Did it give you a taste of kind of what the bigger promotions can offer and what it feels like to wrestle in front of their fans? And maybe the added pressure that it brings. But did you enjoy all of that, and did it give you a taste and maybe a want for more?
Yeah, it definitely did. Obviously, it was quite a short match in the end. And it was, like I said, it was in St. Neots, which is maybe one of their smaller crowds in terms of a live audience anyway. But it certainly sort of gave you that taste and that hunger for more. But again, like I said, with the imposter syndrome, it's like one of those things of like, how is this happening? But yeah, it did light a bit of a fire under me. I mean, like you said, June was a really, really busy month, and then July I had a whole lot of stuff go wrong. So it was like sort of trying to cling on to those moments where it was like that felt really good, and trying to remember that because it got a bit rough in July for me. But yeah, it was just unreal, and obviously any future opportunities, I'd absolutely love to go back.
I'm sure it will happen. I'm sure it will happen. And the final singles championship that you hold, and I alluded to it earlier on, but 7 days earlier, before winning the United Championship, you won this one here, the DOA Women's Championship. And it's a group, it's a promotion that you've not been with for terribly long, but you've already had a fair bit of success because I think you were previously their Adrenaline champion. Is that correct?
No, is it phenomenal? And I think it is. I can't remember. It's got a funny name. The belt. It's an interesting stipulation, that belt though, where the challenger gets to name the stipulation for the match.
Right.
So it changes
Pandemonium.
Pandemonium. Thank you.
That's the one. Yeah.
I know it was a P. But yeah, that was insane. But yeah, like I wrestled for DOA probably like 2.5 years ago or something. I had a match, and then me and Chris were brought in I think it was last summer when Alex Echo was stepping away. He actually requested his last match to be a tag match against us, which was really lovely. We always have so much fun with him and Ben in the ring. It's always a fun time. And then since then it's kind of been I've sort of done a few singles dates for them, and then this year really sort of gained some momentum. And that match was kind of unexpected because that's not the match that I was going to be in that day again. There was a bit of an unexpected dropout on the day, and an opportunity opened up. So I was originally going to be in like a 4 versus 4 tag match to help Sunset Skip earn his place back in DOA. But as the way it went, I got the opportunity to face Leia Elise, who, again, I think she had that belt for like nearly 2 years. 670 something days, I think they said. So certainly not an easy task by any means to go in and face her. She's obviously held it that long for a reason. But yeah, I got the opportunity and was like, well, let's just see what happens and go for it. In some ways, it was like the pressure was off. So, you know, it was great. And yeah, came out with another title, which is completely unexpected.
So you're getting all these wonderful opportunities. Simon Quest when it was meant to have been Alexis Falcon, Nina Samuels when you weren't even advertised to be on the card, and then picking up the DOA Women's Championship when there was no match advertised to start off with, and walking away with another bit of gold. So fantastic! Someone's looking down on you brightly from up above, I'm sure. But
sometimes you just got to go with the flow, you know.
Absolutely, take advantage of every opportunity that comes your way, and that's exactly what's happening. But do you have that championship handy by any chance, like all the others?
I do. This isn't like intentional. This is me being unorganized and not fully unpacking from the weekend.
They were under the desk the whole time, ladies and gentlemen.
I've just about done the washing, but that's about
Yay, look at that. And another fantastic championship. And DOA is a company that I don't talk about enough on this program, but I have had, is it Alec Burnett? I had him on the show many years ago, probably 3 or 4 years ago, and we'll have to get him back on to have a bit of a catch up and a bit of an update for sure. I want to switch subjects a little bit and talk to you a bit about these activities here. Strong women competitions, lifting very, very heavy things, pulling interesting faces whilst doing so. And like I say, being involved in strong women competitions. But you can fully enlighten us in a moment. But tell us, first of all, has there always been kind of an interest or a fascination with lifting heavy things? And was there always a desire to maybe get involved in competitions or meets of those nature?
I think part of where this all comes from is that I am a girl with 2 older brothers in a world where it's like, if they can do it, I can do it better. Like, so I think there's certain personality traits that come from that. But yeah, strong. I mean, I've enjoyed going to the gym only sort of as an adult. I didn't particularly enjoy PE as a kid. It's only as an adult that I started going to the gym. So I've been strength training in some form or another for probably about 8 years, something like that, in the gym. But just sort of dabbling without necessarily knowing what I was doing until I would say when COVID hit and we all got locked down. And when I moved here, my other half had gym equipment in the garage. So he had a squat rack, he had a bar. We since got some dumbbells. And I found a coach online that specialized in powerlifting, because that was like, I can do bench, I can do squats, and I can do deadlifts with the equipment that we have. And I kind of needed something to focus on. I mean, I was furloughed from my other job, and I had a lot of time on my hands, like as many of us I'm sure did. So that was when I sort of started training with like an actual program, and started actually training for strength and developing technique and all that good stuff. As we came out of lockdown, I dropped that because wrestling became an opportunity to, you know, focus on my training and stuff like that. So for me at the time, it was a case of one or the other, because I needed to just sort of concentrate on what I wanted to do. And I was wrestling training a lot. So obviously physically that has its own requirements and it takes a toll on your body. especially when you're learning, because you make a lot of mistakes. So your
Mm.
body takes the brunt of that. But yeah, last year I was sort of looking for something. I needed like a goal. I needed something to do. And I saw that Hugo Bloom, who is a UBW promoter, he'd signed up for a strongman competition, and he'd shared it. And I looked at the women's competition and I thought, I think I could maybe do that. So I signed up for it. It was slightly on a bit of a whim. So I signed up for it and then sort of proceeded to dabble with the events. Not really. I didn't have a plan. I wasn't training that specifically for it. I was continuing doing stuff with the gym and strength training, but not necessarily for the comp. I did the odd day here and there where I picked up some farmers handles and did some things. So I had my first strongman competition last September. Now that was on a weekend where I wrestled at Wet Cake on the Friday and wrestled at UBW on the Saturday, and then I went into the competition on the Sunday. So it wasn't particularly fresh. And for anyone listening, I wouldn't recommend doing that because that's stupid. She says, having done pretty much the same thing again this year. We don't learn lessons here. But yeah, I went into that competition. I actually ended up winning, which was bizarre. But it gave me a bit of a taste for it. Strongman community is really, I think until you've been in it, you don't kind of realize it's so supportive. It's so, I think it probably looks intimidating from the outside, but the variety of people that participate is so incredibly like diverse. I think as a woman, especially, like the shapes and sizes of women that compete in strongman is literally like from the littlest, petitest women to like some of the bigger girls, and everyone is there and everyone is supporting each other and everyone is cheering each other on. Like you're technically competing against each other, but the attitude is kind of like everyone competing against the weight. So I got a coach and then sort of progressed, but because I'd won my first competition, which was a novice level, I had to move up. So I was going into intermediate level this year. So I'd signed up for a competition in March. And then a few weeks before that competition, I got the opportunity to sign up to another one. We were going to the Arnold Sports Festival and they announced that they were going to run a competition. So I signed up for it, and that was like 9 days before the other competition. And I was like, that might be a bit stupid, but we'll see. So I did 2 intermediate competitions within 9 days of each other, and then another one about 3 weeks later. And I actually podiumed at all 3 of those as well, which was incredible. So I was like, I got a couple of third places. Yeah, that's at the Arnold's, that one actually. So I came third there completely unexpectedly, like, and then the competition 9 days later, I was really not expecting to podium at all. Like some of the weights were, it was like a deadlift with an axle bar. So the axle bar is really, really thick. It's hard on your grip. And that was for reps. And it was at a weight that was heavier than the heaviest deadlift I'd ever done for 1 rep. So there were certain things in it that was just like, well, there's no way. And it was like, even with the Atlas stones, I think they went up to 100. Did they go up to 100 kg on the day? And I think the most I'd ever done was a PB at the Arnold's 9 days before, where I managed to get the 90 kg stone up. And on the day, I just flew through those stones, and it was like I didn't know what was happening. It was like my body just took over and did it. And then I took a little rest after that. But I actually ended up with a bit of an injury in my back. Must have been around April, May time. That sort of took me out of wrestling and took me out of strongman for a little while. So it was a bit of a weird injury. I'm not exactly sure what caused it, but I had some bruising on my spine, on my vertebrae. So I had to rest it and let it heal. And then September, it was the same competition that I'd won last year, but I was in the open category this year. And that was madness. And I think I came 5th in the end in that one, which is completely, again, unexpected, because at that open level you get really experienced competitors going in. So it's been a really good year for strongman. I am currently taking a bit of a break from strongman at the minute. I've sort of got a couple of things that I just need to rehab and let heal. I think wrestling probably doesn't help those things as well. So I actually recently just signed up with a coach, and I'm actually on a bodybuilding plan at the minute. Not necessarily to compete, just to be clear, but it's the first time I think ever that I'm training purely with aesthetics in mind, which is very strange to me, rather than building strength. But I love strength training. I think I'll go on about it all day, but like women, especially, if you're a woman out there watching this, and you don't strength train, please look into taking it up. It's so important for you, especially your bone density as you get into elderly years, as say some of us. I'm a big advocate for it.
Yeah, let's bring up a few more pictures and some very impressive lifts here. And yeah,
I think it's all from the face, to be honest. I think all my strength comes from the face as I pull. I'm convinced of it.
That gives you that extra 10%. But no, congratulations on everything. And like I say, we'll kind of stay tuned to your socials to see if you have any more meets or any more competitions in 2025. But once you've kind of fully healed and got all your niggles out of the way, but congratulations. And more importantly, it looks like you enjoy the hell out of it, and you enjoy being part of that kind of community, as you described it, where everybody's very, very supportive and it's good fun. But just don't go dropping any of them Atlas stones on your toes, will you? That could be quite nasty.
Yeah, that was why I couldn't defend the tag team championships last December. I squashed my ankle.
Is that what happened?
Atlas stones.
No.
Yeah, I let a stone fall and stepped back, and it rolled straight into my ankle, and I was literally right against another stone. So it was like my ankle just got sandwiched between two Atlas stones. Not nice.
We've got a certain Tom Hollyley watching at home. When's the calendar dropping? Now, I've heard of the Nathan Angel calendar. I haven't heard of the Crimson Killshot calendar. What's he alluding to there? I have no idea.
It's not a raunchy calendar, I'm afraid, for anyone that's hoping. There's been much discussion this evening about my facial expressions, Jonna, and it is a running joke within the wrestling community that I have some interesting facial expressions that come out of my face. I think I've put some up before where I've done like moods of Artemis, where it's just like the facial expressions that I pulled in one match. I think if I was to do a calendar, it would purely be wrestlers that bought it, I think.
Well, it could prove popular. It could prove popular. I want to switch back to wrestling, and I want to talk about Chris Aries now, because obviously you kind of closely connected with one another. I think your journey has been intertwined from day one, and probably will be intertwined for many years to come. Certainly for as long as you continue tagging together as one half of the Odyssey. But when I had Chris on the show, we spoke a bit about yourself and about your growth and your journey, and so all of which we've covered in this interview. But thinking back to Chris, and I know that when the two of you were on the show last March, 21 months ago, we spoke about kind of his journey from when I first knew him, and the fresh face, short haircut, very pale, and absolutely no self tan at all, and maybe only one or two tattoos, to the development and what he is, how he's grown through till now. But the guy better than absolutely anybody, and I'm going to bring up some pictures here from not necessarily such recent times. You are currently one half of the Saints of Sacrifice tag team champions over at Sacrifice Pro, of course. There you are with the championships, and not entirely sure where that is. That is also Sacrifice Pro, because I see the ladders. Yeah, absolutely. There he is as the Legion King. And he's recently gone through a bit of a name change recently, but obviously picking up championships in United, the Phantomweight, the first ever Phantomweight champion, the current future proved champion. And there he is with all the gold. But you must be incredibly proud of Chris from when you first kind of met, got together as a tag team, started performing together under the Meme team, and then became the Odyssey and had these lengthy tag team runs in UBW and United. And now you've kind of branched off and doing your own things now, as we've already established. But considering kind of, his growth and his development from your perspective. You know, have you got any words to say to or about Chris? Because it's been quite phenomenal, hasn't it?
100%. Yeah, I think in some ways proud, but like I always feel like I've been kind of in awe of Chris, like from day one, because he started a little bit before me. He's got that bit more experience than me. And I always feel like he's sort of dragged me along a little bit. And I've always, like, you know, when I've tagged with him and that, I watch him work. And I was just like, this guy is so good. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, and I've kind of always had that opinion, like since we've been started wrestling. And it's almost like you sort of forget, and then you tag again, and then like working together in that way, you're like, what is this like level? The level that he's on is phenomenal, and you know, the titles that he's held are 100% like totally deserved, and I think he suffers in some ways the same as me with the imposter syndrome. I think he would self-doubt in ways that I also would, but he is phenomenal. I think as well what needs to be acknowledged is the hard work that he's putting in terms of like the gym side of stuff as well. And committing to actually like eating and putting on some weight and some muscle, which, you know, it's not an easy thing to do, especially when you're wrestling a lot. And if you're not doing it before you wrestle, to start while you're already wrestling is a big thing. So you definitely, you know, that deserves to be called out as well. And he's in incredible shape at the minute, especially like I think it was commented on quite a bit this weekend. Like, he just looks like he's in great shape at the minute. But yeah, it's one of those things. I think, yeah, like I said, I've always sort of been kind of in awe of him. But when we work together, it's very much of we have really, really different mindsets in some ways about wrestling, which is kind of why we work so well as a tag team, because he can be a bit of an excitable puppy, and I have to sort of calm that down a little bit. But then he pushes me to go outside of my comfort zone. So he's always like looking to grow and try new things and build, and that for me is like, he's kind of like my role model in wrestling in some ways. So yeah, he's pushed me to grow, certainly. And it, you know, I'd sort of aspire to sort of have that level of like excitement and drive to try different things, and that he does. And he's always like so hard on himself as well, like with different things. I don't think he gives himself the credit. So here's me giving you the credit, Chris.
How did you feel when he jumped off the balcony at United Wrestling a couple of months ago? Because I overheard him saying, he might even have been speaking to me, that you're always trying to talk him down from doing the risky stuff and get him to do less and less risks. And there he is jumping off of balconies.
I mean, what I would say, Jonas, is the first time that I came to United was the first time United ran that venue. And we walked into that room and he was like, oh, a balcony. Can I be the first one to jump off of that? So it was kind of just an inevitability. There's some things that I know that I can talk him down from, and there's some things that I'm just not going to even try. There's no point. But yeah,
it was going to happen.
He will put his body on the line for wrestling. Like, some of the fans might not appreciate quite how much of a toll wrestling takes on your body, regardless of what you're doing. And he will do all the silly things, and he'll quite often do all the silly things whilst he's carrying an injury as well. So it's just trying to remind him to be a little bit sensible sometimes. But yeah, Chris is gonna Chris, so you know, I'm not gonna stop him from jumping off the balcony.
No, and like I say, we're huge fans of Chris Aries on this show, and of course he was the reason why I came back in September, because I was looking for that excuse. I was looking for that excuse to come back after a 4 or 5 month layoff, and then I saw his promo, which kind of advertised his name changed and kind of slight, you know, gimmick tweak, and I thought, right, well, this is my excuse. I've gotten the message. 10 minutes later, he said, "Yep, I'm in." Yeah. 2 days later, we were talking, and I've not looked back since. But focusing purely on returning guests, But absolutely fantastic. Now, I want to finish by going to some listener questions. Now, I said that we had a lot of listener questions that came through before we went live, and let's jump to them now. In fact, let's have a look. Oh, Tom Hollyley is, if there's one thing that you could change about the independent wrestling lifestyle, what would it be? That's an interesting question from Mr. Hollyley. Not one of the questions I was going to go to, but I saw that and thought I'd bring it up on screen. So if there's one thing you could change about the independent wrestling lifestyle, what would it be? I'm not entirely sure what he's alluding to there, but do you have any idea, and how would you answer that?
I actually think I would change the stuff outside of the independent wrestling lifestyle to enable me to do the independent lifestyle more. I think the hardest thing for me is the travel. I am somebody who likes to be in bed at a reasonable time at night, partially because I get up early as well. Like, I have to be up early for my job. And, you know, there's sometimes where you're on a show in an evening on a Saturday, like this weekend is a prime example. Actually, DOA was in Yarmouth. So for me, it's sort of about just under 3 hours travel each way. And I think the show, I think it was doors at 7 o'clock or something. So I was home at 2 o'clock in the morning, and then I did 2 shows the next day. So it's not conducive to good night's sleep, to getting enough sleep. It's also, you know, some days, like Sunday perhaps was a bit of an exception because I was doing 2 shows in a day, but figuring out when and what to eat is also a challenge. Like, I have particular nutritional targets. I need to get my protein in, and I have another, you know, certain amount of food that I need to eat during a day. And you don't want to eat too close to when you're wrestling. I struggle a little bit to eat after I've wrestled because the adrenaline's still buzzing.
Yeah.
You don't want to eat and then feel bloated. So if there's anything that's going to cause bloating, you just like avoid it. And there's always those fine margins. I think that's it for me. Like, the actual wrestling, I really enjoy. I think promoters could do more. Like, United is a prime example of how they tell stories. And a lot of the matches, they're not just a match. There's a reason for the match happening. And being involved in storylines it's exciting to be part of that, and it gives you like a bit more focus and a bit more drive. So maybe change more promoters doing that. To be fair, I do think some try, and it maybe, you know, we'll see more and more. But yeah, I think that would be what I would change.
Good answer, sir. Absolutely. Right. So, Dawn Hopkins. Now let's bring up Dawn. Big fan of Wrestling Majonas. I love Dawn to bits. I know she's a big fan of yours. Excited to hear the interview with Artemis. She's been quite inspirational for me, and getting to talk to her a lot at shows has been amazing. I have some questions for her, so let's jump to them. First of all, what made her choose her name and image? Now, before you answer that, there was a couple of other people that wanted to know about the Crimson Killshot and how you came up with the nickname the Crimson Killshot. We had Richie there, friend of the show. We got Darren there. How did you come up with the name Crimson Killshot? But jumping back to Dawn's question, what made her choose your name and your image? And maybe tell us a bit about the Crimson Killshot nickname and character in a nutshell, as briefly as you can.
I'd have to call out Paul Ash on this one, because he gave me the original inspiration for the Hit Woman thing. And then it was like, I always knew that I kind of wanted like a one name. Going to wrestling shows as a fan, I'd really struggle to remember wrestlers' names. I'm not great at remembering people's names in real life. So then you go to a wrestling show and you see somebody do something really cool, and I'd be like, you know, that guy that was in the blue trunks doing the thing, and he'd have like a really generic name, like a John Smith or something. And for me, it just didn't stick in my head. So like, when I was coming up with a name, I kind of wanted something that would be kind of more, it'd be different and potentially easier to remember because it's different. And Artemis is the Greek goddess of the hunt. So where I was going with the Hit Woman thing, it felt like a good fit. And obviously I've since learned more into that, and my image has kind of followed that trajectory as well. Obviously, it started with more of the hit woman thing and has progressed more into kind of the Greek warrior feel, which I wanted to progress. The Crimson Killshot, I'll be honest, I cannot really remember. I think we came up with it 3 years ago tomorrow on the day of the show.
Brilliant.
And it was like needed something. Obviously, I was going with the red color theme. And that was kind of where we landed. There wasn't, I'm afraid, anything exciting or significant. I'm sorry.
It all works. It all works. It all makes sense. So Dawn again asks, would Artemis be willing to post her workouts on social media to help a gal out wanting to achieve more? So I know Dawn's participated in some half marathons and full marathons. Bit of a runner, bit of an athlete is our Dawn. But would you be willing to post maybe some of your workouts to help motivate people like Dawn and help them to achieve more?
Yeah, I think so. Social media is something I really try to post more on, and quite often fail. It's genuinely like, I wish, this is where I'm saying, like, if other stuff moved aside, I'm talking about, like, real life responsibilities of work and stuff, I would commit a lot more time to it. I have just started a new Instagram page, which I'm trying to post more fitness related content onto, because I realize, like, I've got different pages for different things. It sort of helps me kind of separate it out a little bit. But yeah, I'd be happy to post stuff. I mean, Dawn, if she's been doing cardio, that she's probably got a better cardio schedule than I do. But strength training wise, yeah. I mean, obviously at the minute, like I said, it's a slightly different type of training that I'm doing at the minute, which is, it requires the gym and the machines and stuff like that. But I will have to drop Dawn the link to my other Instagram page and try and post more stuff for you, Dawn.
There we go. And Dawn again, your favorite moment of 2024. Now, we've spoken about a lot of highlights and favorite moments. So I don't know if you could kind of boil it down to maybe one or two if you're struggling, but do you have a favorite moment or something that you're really, really proud of from 2024?
In terms of moments, that's a really hard question. I think we obviously spoke about the Riot Cabaret debut earlier with Nina Samuels, and I think, like I said, wrestling her was kind of like a full circle moment for me in wrestling, so that was quite cool. But actually, on that day, the moment that sticks in my head is coming out onto the stage and feeling like the energy from the crowd. And likewise, obviously, like, I won the title again and finished that story on Sunday, and that's really, really special. But the moment still that sticks out for me was when I came down and I just took that moment, like, with the crowd almost, and just took it in. I think that's it's a really hard one, I think, for wrestlers, that we're always like kind of on the go. Like, you do a show and then you've got another show. Like this weekend, we've said, obviously I did 3 shows over the weekend. It's like you do one and you almost don't have time to take it in because you're on to the next one. So it's like, for me, it's just those moments where I've been able to sort of have that second and just sit in it and be like, well, this is pretty cool.
I think that this was the entrance from your debut, I believe. But
I might have been in the ring there. I can't remember.
But
it
nevertheless,
it was really
moment.
special.
Indeed. And one more from Dawn, just to finish off this episode of Wrestling with Johners. What are Artemis's goals for 2025? So we've not really spoke too much about the future, but like I say, looking ahead, you do hold some gold. You are the champion, for DOA and for United, for UBW, and one half of the Saints for Sacrifice. So you're carrying some gold into 2025. So, an exciting start to the year by the looks of things. But do you have any specific goals, whether it be personal or professional, or things you'd like to achieve in the professional wrestling business?
It's a really interesting question. It's one of the things, because I think this time of year we'd start seeing people putting out lists of people they'd like to face and promotions they'd like to go to, and I've kind of always avoided that. Like, there are people, of course, that I would like to face if the opportunity presents itself, absolutely. But I kind of try to sort of go with the flow a little bit with things, because sometimes, like we say, those moments come out of something unexpected, something that's not planned, something that's not even a goal that I could have. Red Pro wasn't even something that I thought that I was ready to aspire to when I got that opportunity. And then, yeah, obviously the title shots that I've had, I've won 2 titles in matches that I wasn't supposed to have this year. So I think for me is like to try and continue to just remember why I'm doing it and keep the love for it, because we do have those moments, I think, a lot of us, where we just need to take a little step back, because it is demanding, and it is, when you're working outside of wrestling as well, sometimes life gets a bit busy. And on a non-wrestling related note, we're potentially going to be moving in 2025, and I know that that's probably going to take a lot of mental demand from me, so I kind of just need to be careful about managing that a little bit. But yeah, I kind of just want to keep going with it. Like, I'm having a lot of fun. Obviously, at the minute I'm holding 4 titles, so it is just kind of a case of seeing what we can do with those and where we can go. Hopefully get a little bit more tag wrestling back in the agenda for the year. I know that we've got a couple of dates in the diary already. We're going over to Evolution for the first time, and hoping to return to Wales as well. We went to Wales for the first time this year as a tag team, so I personally would like to do a little bit more tag again and get a little bit more of a mix between the two. Also, like, at United, we would really love the opportunity to face the Dogs Bollocks. Like, obviously we were meant to face them last year. Chris got to wrestle them and I was injured, and I think we'd really like to run that back and do it properly. So if that opportunity presented itself, I'm sure that we could have a lot of fun with that. But yeah, for me, it's kind of trying to just enjoy the journey and remember why I came into it, and to keep enjoying it, because that's something to maintain. Sometimes we get a bit too serious, and it's a lot of fun wrestling.
Absolutely. And because Dawn sent in quite a few questions today, including a nice little statement about how influential you are on her, I thought I'd bring up this picture from earlier this year. It's Mike Angus, yourself, me, Dawn, and it's Stephen, but Russell, all sporting Wrestling with John's t-shirts there, and a lovely occasion it was. I think that was the New Cross Inn, wasn't it, for Tidal back in February?
I was trying to look in the background, like, where is this? Like,
that was Tidal, and that was an interesting show for sure. But we're going to ask you for your socials, and hopefully we've reached out to some new fans of Artemis, and I'm sure they're wanting to know where they can reach out to you on social media, say hi, and just get to know more about you, and kind of learn more about the Crimson Killshot. But I have got scrolling along the bottom of the screen your Instagram, your X, and your Facebook. Yeah, just kind of. Do you have a preferred platform? I know that you do post on Instagram a fair bit, but tell us a bit about your social media activity and where we can find you most.
I'm glad that you had them there, because I'm like, I can never remember them off the top of my head.
They're Artemis PW in some order.
It's my brand, and I'm like, what is it? I just really struggle to remember things. Yeah, I'm mainly on Instagram. I do use Facebook and I do use Twitter, but I find Twitter quite a difficult platform to be on.
Same.
And Facebook I probably use more for personal life rather than wrestling, but I do have the account there and I do share stuff there. But Instagram is probably my most active social media, so yeah, give me a follow there.
Go and give Artemis a follow. But we do have some new merchandise, don't we? And I'm going to bring this up here. And at the time of kind of grabbing this, it did say available to pre-order, but it's now available and you are selling it at shows, I understand.
Yeah, it came in fresh for the weekend, so I sold a few this weekend. So there'll be at Sacrifice this weekend come in. I'll probably have them at Riot next Tuesday, and then at United in Reading at the end of the month as well. When's that? 22nd. So yeah. But if anyone does want one that isn't potentially seeing me at a show, they can just drop me a message on social media and we can figure it out.
There we go. And just going to flash up this image one more time. Artemis, the brand new United champion, will be taking on Alice Inc. Sunday, the 22nd of December. Double-barreled brewery in Reading. Naughty or nice. And it will be Artemis's first championship defense against formidable opponents. So we wish you all the very, very best for that. But the Crimson Killshot Artemis, a returning guest. And this is actually my one and only interview for December and my final interview for 2024. So thank you for being a fantastic guest. And it's always fantastic seeing you at shows. But I want to thank you again for being a wonderful guest, and a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year and a happy 2025 for whatever, the wrestling business brings to Crimson Killshot. But thank you so much for being a wonderful guest.
Thank you for having me. And yeah, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. And to everyone, if I don't see you over the next month.
There we go. We'll see you all soon. Thank you very much. Take care.